Hey, today on the Shrewd Dudes Podcast Thursday live stream, we are going to talk about a few different things.
Just a few.
In our rants of the week, no, in our this week in satire, whoops, already off my balance. It's already the start of the video. Whoa, baby.
Gotta get on board, boy.
Yeah, in this week in satire, we're going to talk about 14 things the FBI found in Donald Trump's safe. The third one may surprise you. Well, an old clickbait. In our rants of the week, we're going to talk about how satire and reality in today's messed up culture are sometimes confusing because the world is topsy-turvy.
It's a weird world we live in.
We're then going to do more elaboration in a new segment called Nothing to See Here about the whole FBI Mar-a-Lago raid.
It's a mess
and theories and ideas and why it happened and all that. We're going to break everything down to the best of our ability. Then finally, in our douche of the week, we're going to talk about someone who is legitimately, and we said this would happen.
We did. Called
legitimately defending and encouraging pedophiles because reasons. It's disgusting, but they do.
Let's face it, many of them are.
Yep.
Let's face it.
So all of that and more on the Shrewd Dudes Podcast. All right, we are back on another Thursday for another live stream.
Live stream Thursday.
Just a kind of an intro for everybody else who has been watching. We know we have several key listeners and key viewers who come in every week, and we thank you for those. If you have comments during the live stream and you have questions you wish us to answer, please target them to either YouTube at Shrewd Dudes Streams or on Twitch at twitch.tv/Shrewd Dudes Podcast. Yes. So either of those platforms, and we would love to answer your questions. If you ask questions on Facebook, especially on Twitter, it's much more difficult to respond because we actually have to open the video.
You know what we should do, Stephen? We should we should choose a very specific area to send all your messages or questions or something like that. But that people can send them during the week as well. And that if
email.
Email. Yeah,
or you can go to theshrewddudes.com,
yep.
And I believe we have a way to contact us on the website. So if you have questions you want us to answer during the week, then you can send them via shrewddudes.com, or you can send us a message on Twitter, on Facebook, on Parler, on any of those, and we'll get to it if it's reasonable and won't take up an enormous amount of time. Sometimes I get these long drawn-out comments, which is just let's explain the history, since like on this whole Mar-a-Lago raid, I got this long comment that was 2 pages long about the history of the FBI and how this and this and this, and I'm like, oh, this was more in depth than I was looking for. Okay. All right, sure. I'm just gonna take it because I'm not reading a story. But so yes, have questions, have commentary, Twitch and YouTube. And I will be monitoring those chats. Danny will be checking them out. If you have other commentary which you want to post on Facebook, that's fine.
You know what? The easiest way,
we'll try and read it all.
You can send all these things to any of those places, but the simplest place, just send an email. Send us a quick email to the shrewddudes at gmail.com.
Yes.
Nice and easy. Just send it there, and if any email, any questions and all that, send them there. I will pull them out on the show.
Yes, indeed we will. Indeed we will. All right, I'm just going to share to the Facebook page.
You got to do your thing.
And
you know what? While you do your thing, I'm going to tell people about my exciting life, which is not terribly exciting, but
it'll be quick.
It'll be quick. But yeah, so this week has been an interesting kind of week, and I don't think for a Canadian audience, things haven't really changed a lot here, except that the most important thing that's happened in Canada is basically the unveiling of those court documents that prove basically fairly conclusively that Trudeau's entire narrative, that his that the COVID policies were like based on science, is a complete farce, complete fabrication. That was the big revelation in Canada. But if you're in the United States, the big huge thing, and we're going to talk about it today, and it's not just a little deal. It's not like oh, that's interesting, or like, oh, that's a curious side story. It's like it's a big deal, because what happened in the States, and I'll just give you a very quick summary of what this means. The United States FBI going after a former president, that is a unwritten rule, like almost like a thing you don't cross, because it's a Pandora's box. Because the second the active government goes after its previous or future political opponents, that's when you've crossed a very serious line, and one that you can't uncross. And that's why this was so scary, because now we're the United States is acting like the kind of countries that are always criticized as being basically like the countries that don't honor they don't honor democratic policies, freedom policies, that they use power in an abusive way. And that's what happened in the U.S. That's why people are pissed off, and for good reason, because you never want to see, particularly any kind of police force like the FBI, be politicized, because when you get any kind of, the FBI is supposed to be neutral. It's supposed to be apply the law equally to Democrats, to Republicans, to anybody, doesn't matter who it is. But it's become very clear to a lot of people, they're no longer neutral. They are one-sided. They are basically working for the Democratic Party. That's why there was a comic. I don't know if you saw that little meme, Stephen, that I posted a while ago, where you have the Praetorian Guard first, then you have the Gestapo in Nazi Germany, then you have the KGB,
and then you have
and
the
then he's
FBI.
looking at the FBI.
Although it really should be all those KGB, RCMP, and then the FBI.
Yeah, and the RCMP is just as bad.
They're worse. They are worse.
Yeah, but they basically become politicized, and whenever you have a politicized police force, you need to be very, very afraid of what will come. Right?
Yep.
But
that's
just
a little Danny's mini little monologue.
Well, I mean, you're doing your things. I gotta get people
fill in the time. Fill in time. All right, let's jump into this week in Satire.
Fill in time, man. What a commentary of my brilliance. What the heck, man? Do your stupid Babylon Bee thing. Come on.
Do your stupid Babylon Bee thing. 14 things the FBI found in Donald Trump's safe. All right. So the FBI raided former President Trump Mar-a-Lago home and found incriminating evidence that he was once president of the United States. While they were there, they spent over 4 hours cracking open a solid gold safe because it's Trump. Here's what they found, and we will do 1, 2, 1, 2. Thousands of McDonald's receipts, immaculate record keeping.
I mean, you gotta track those. Those are tax deductible,
especially Diet Coke.
That's right. Number 2, 3 pallets of Norvell Premium Sunless Tanning Solution, Dark 1. Only the best for our president. That's why he's Orange Man bad,
Yeah.
Doesn't get that golden sheen,
World's best president mug. It's been detained for questioning. Because the FBI wants to know why it's saying this.
Amen. Number 4, Barron's Xbox controller, because he's grounded from Xbox. Well, this is a relief. We thought he was ghosting us on Xbox Live.
Every time I think about this, and I think about that scene from Endgame where the guy's just Noob Master, where Thor's has to come on into the microphone. He says, "I am Thor, Noob Master, and I will go over there, and I will hit you with lightning." The kickstand for Biden's bike, sneaky.
Very sneaky. That's right. Number 6, Obama's actual certificate. Everyone was wrong. He was born in Zap. What's that? ND? What's ND?
I'm assuming that's North Dakota.
North Dakota? Okay, that works. Weird.
Yeah. 7, a note that reads, "You FBIs are low IQ. Sad, not good. This was found in a safe within a safe." Oh, 4D chess.
Oh, he's got him. Number 8, free verse, reflective poems. So sensitive. And I actually wouldn't mind to read those.
Yeah. Number 9, several dozen copies of Home Alone 2 lost in New York. Probably the inspiration for all the booby traps federal agents had to evade in Mar-a-Lago.
It's funny actually. My favorite scene from like a past like TV show, like cameo, is from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yeah.
Where like Ashley's so pissed at Trump. It's like I don't know. Everyone's always mad at me for something.
Yeah.
It was a little predictive. Number 10, the actual nuclear codes and not the fake ones he slipped to Biden. Wait a minute. Wouldn't the real president have the nuclear codes? Something fishy. Oh.
Yeah. Number 11, little tiny shampoos which were stolen from the White House bathroom. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Oh, that is cold. That is ice cold. Who steals shampoos?
The next one.
What a guy. Number 12, over 1 million unsent tweets. Carefully recorded and cataloged on papyrus scrolls. Nice. I mean, these things are gold. Like, you can't just waste them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So number 13, a signed agreement between Trump and Pence that he would not mean tweet Pence appears to be scrawled in crayon on a KFC napkin.
That's pretty official right there. Very official. And number 14, the mirror of Erised. When he looks into it, he sees world peace. What is the mirror of Erised? Is that the one on Harry Potter where you see like whatever you want or something like that?
You see your greatest desires.
Okay. I didn't actually know what it was called.
Yep.
He sees world peace. Well, you know what? That actually would be Trump, because he was his foreign policy.
His foreign policy was solid. It was dead on.
He kind of rocked it.
On. He did
kind of rocked it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I think it's pretty funny because like the whole setup for this Babylon Bee article is the fact that the FBI, not only did they go in and do their little shenanigans, but that they basically went after a safe. And like the funny thing is like there was nothing in the safe, but like of course the joke is like, well, what did they plant or what did they actually find in the safe? So it's a gigantic like farce. It's crazy right now.
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time.
Big
it was
time.
always a farce. It was always a farce.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, but
very dangerous farce.
Speaking of farces, our rant of the week this week, of course, as we mentioned, is about determining satire from reality. So we're going to investigate 2 stories. One of them is real, one of them is fake. You tell which is which.
Let's do it.
All right. And for a second I was just like completely lost, but I'm good now. I was like, wait, where are things? Where are my things? Okay, I'm good.
Red alert.
Steven's got to get his crap together.
Yeah, I did have to get my crap together for a second here. So, starting off from the story from Fox News, 80-year-old Washington State woman banned from YMCA after demanding trans employee leave locker. Spokesperson for the YMCA said the permanent suspension was due to repeated violations of their code of conduct.
So what happened?
So, permanently banned from local YMCA pool after demanding that a trans employee leave the women's locker room, she told local media. I saw a man in a women's bathing suit watching 4 or 5 little girls pulling down their suits in order to use the toilet. Port Townsend resident Julie Jaman recalled the July incident to Seattle radio show host Dory Munson. I asked if he had a penis, and he said it would be none of my business, and I told that man to get out right now. It occurred on July 26th at the Mountain View Pool, which is a city of Port Townsend facility operated by YMCA, according to local news outlet, the Port Townsend Free Press. She said she was alerted to the trans employee being in the women's locker room while she was showering and heard a man's voice. She told Munson that the radio show host, that she alerted a pool staffer to the incident and was stunned when the staff member told her she was being discriminatory and was banned from the pool forever. The staffer also allegedly said the police would be called, according to Jaman's radio interview. She didn't ask me what the problem was, if I was okay, nothing about me. It was as if he was waiting to pounce on me. It was just stunning. So, no official police report was filed, but the department provided an incident report on the matter.
You know, it's really interesting. Like, the way that they this person described what was actually happening. It was like there was an incident. I don't know if you remember. I think it was California, somewhere in California, maybe LA. The woman went up and there's a whole video.
The weed spa.
She went up and she would like complain. This man was basically like completely naked.
Yep.
In a women's
he's got a dick in the changing room.
That's accurate. That's exactly what happened. and they basically tried to like I don't know, shame her for being like like, oh, you're so like bigoted and all that kind of stuff. Here you actually have something worse.
Yep.
Here you have somebody who's like in a women's bathing suit to try to legitimize their transgenderism, but they're watching like little girls pull down their suits in order to use the toilet. Okay. In other words, yeah. In other words, you have a person who is who's literally showing behavior that should be called out, no matter what. If I saw a man in a men's bath, in like like a men's change room, if I'm at the YMCA, and I see a man standing there staring at little boys, pulling down their bathing suits to go to the bathroom, and just kind of observing, I'd be a little peeved.
Yeah. Well, and especially
what the hell
if a man, like if I caught wind of a man checking out little, like especially my kids, if he was checking out the change room of little girls, and it's like, okay, I don't think I'd actually like just tell him to leave. I'd probably put him in a headlock and I'd drag him out. Yeah. I'm like, nope, you're not doing this. I don't care if it's insensitive to your feelings. You are not peeking on little girls as they change. You gigantic creep. And there's no way around it. Like, this 80-year-old woman is totally in the right. Yeah. And they're like, well, you're being insensitive. Like, you're being offensive. And you're banned forever from the pool. Okay. I'll find another pool, and I'll advise everybody that I know. Like, anybody... like, I don't go to the YMCA, but it's not like I would suggest that people go to the YMCA now. Because if this is their policy, oh yeah, there's a grown man wearing a women's suit, just kind of looking at little girls pulling down their pants to go to the washroom, staring at them, and you're okay with this. All right, cancel your membership now, boycott YMCA, screw those guys. Yeah.
And the worst part is like, like that. Like when you go to a change room, there's a reason why it's a bit of a sensitive area. Like, women feel like women like naturally feel very vulnerable and very like exposed when they're basically naked. Like when I go to a change room in a major place and all that, I don't like. I'm okay with like changing, but I'm like, it's still kind of like if I had some other guy just staring at me while I'm like like undressing and changing into my
it'd be like,
I find that super
move
creepy.
Move along.
You're like, dude, what the hell are you looking at? Like,
Yeah. What are you looking at? You're right? Like, you're not supposed to have an attraction to me. This is wrong.
No, exactly.
I'm like, there are boundaries. There are times in which it's just like somebody's changing. Yeah. Like, I watch people change when it's certain people, like my wife. I'm like, hello, you're changing.
Oh boy, so mature.
I know. It's just so much fun. But yeah, like, but that's other people. It's like, yeah, like that's your wife. Very different than very okay. I'm gonna be watching some random person. I'm watching children change purely to get my rocks off, and that's totally uncalled for and way out of line.
Well, and you have to remember too. Here's the problem too. Like this person, like, okay, so this transgender person, they already know that they are in they're in a place where people feel uncomfortable already. They're going to feel uncomfortable that they're there at all, right? And you're making it worse by engaging in creepy behavior. Like, and then the worst part is that they feel protected and insulated. Nobody will call me out on it. Nobody will even like suggest that like this is wrong, because they basically have this shield, this magical shield that protects them from all criticism, and whatever they do, they're completely and totally protected. That's essentially what happened with that person we talked about on Tuesday, that Eli Ehrlich. That this is how blatant they are. They feel they can do whatever they want. They'll never be called out for it. They'll never be held accountable for it. This is how you create monsters. Yep. When you basically excuse any behavior to the point where the people, like, they have no reason to even be worried about like any repercussions, and they know they're going to be protected because like people are too scared to say anything about it. So this is the world we're living in, where this kind of stuff like would have been crazy in the past, but now it's like, that now we have to just get used to this new reality. It's insane, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, we would have thought this was crazy.
Like this, I'm sure that Babylon Bee or some other satire website, when conservatives were talking about this, they're like, oh, well, this is bound to happen. Like it's going to happen. Yep. They're like, no, this will never happen. Like you're saying this is a slippery slope. This is a fallacy. It's not going to happen. Like this is not just an entrance way for pedophiles. And we're like, well, yes, of course it is. Mm-hmm. It was always going to be a gateway for pedophiles to go in and look. Mm-hmm. This guy did it. Jonathan Yaniv did it. Many other individuals have done it over and over and over again.
I don't know if you remember Target. Target made that policy that you can use whatever bathroom you want. And then there was a pervert who actually went into a girl's washroom. And was filming.
Yep.
Like, well, how could that ever happen? There's no such thing as people pretending to be like, transgender in order to like, have you seen the kind of like, the kind of lengths that people take to try to get these kind of things? People who actually put like video cameras on their shoes so they can upskirt women.
Yep.
I'm like, you think that they wouldn't take advantage of a policy like that? Give me a break.
Give me a break. They would take advantage of that day and night.
Yeah, but then like you take this story and then you take it to the next story, the one that I actually believe that this was a real story because it looks like
and
kind of thing
it was shared. Yeah. Sorry, Charlie Kirk, this is not real. But it was, and so you look at it and you're like, huh. This seems like sort of legit when you first check it out. And then the more you look at it, you're like, okay, no, this is not real. But it could be. It could be real.
Yeah, so show the video and show tell me that on just
now joining us is drag queen and former first grade teacher, Holgatha Sisti. So, Holgatha.
Hi.
It is amazing to have you on the program. So why did you get fired?
I got fired because I was putting on a drag show for my first grade class. And, I like to teach culture, all cultures. And, there is a gay culture. And so it's ridiculous. This father walked in with a MAGA hat, I should add.
Oh my gosh.
He walks in and he's completely horrified at what he's singing.
Yeah.
And he comes up to the stage. I made a makeshift stage in the front of my class.
That is amazing.
And the kids were just cheering me on and I was doing my number. And then he pulls me off the stage. And of course I'm going to defend myself. Yeah. And I hit him with my purse. And that's really why I got fired.
Well, you have every right to do that. I'm sure you felt threatened for your life, right?
Well, yeah, and as a woman, I have the right to defend myself.
Of course you do, because, men like to say it, they're naturally stronger than women, so you needed to use that force, right?
Well, right. I mean, he thought it was appropriate to use his brute strength on me.
Yeah, so why do you think the school doesn't want you to have drag queen story time and these drag shows?
Well, it's funny because it was fine until that parent and a couple other parents complained. But, I don't know. I kind of think the school is just doing it because they think that it's just safe for them to get rid of me because I did get an assault charge for hitting him. But, most of the school is okay with it. And I don't know. I just think they wanted to get rid of me because of that.
No, absolutely. It's just homophobia. And they're in this echo chamber, in this bubble. They just don't want to live in reality.
Well, they're caving into the wrong people, and I do live in a red district, if you know what I'm talking about.
That makes me sick. I don't know how much longer you're going to live there, but I wish that.
So you look at that segment now, tell me, Stephen, that you cannot see that scenario playing out in real life.
Oh, easy. Well, it's very simple. It's a modification, and it's kind of a combination because there have been drag queens Like that story we looked at of the drag queen that showed up in the church. That was not during a regular service. That was during a Catholic. No, it was during it was a chapel for the school.
It was a chapel for the school, and they showed up, and they showed a drag queen who was actually exposing themselves with their outfit.
Yeah,
the children.
Headlock, drag you out of the
That's
building.
not wrong. On Tuesday, we featured 3 stories of 3 people who very intentionally and purposefully are more than happy to show. Like, there was that woman, remember that one teacher, who was showing a video of a drag queen talking to little kids about how drag queen is totally appropriate. We have videos of of children being at actual drag shows where people would bring their children. Remember that Dallas one that was a big scandal, and then there was that other one in Florida where the whatever, like, it was, I don't know if it was a woman or a man with like a boob job, but basically you have like the nipples basically taped, but their boobs totally exposed. Like, we see this kind of stuff and we think, you think that they're not going to be willing to do this kind of stuff? And the way that many of them even dress. Remember that one video, the one woman who basically said her entire class came out as as transgender? Her hair, she had her hair shaved almost entirely in the front, had like some kind of a weird band over it, and then like the hair was actually behind it. Like, these people don't even dress professionally. They dress like very bizarre.
Well, if you look at that, if you look at the video, like if you look at their face, they actually have lipstick that's painted down to make it look like they're constantly just like.
Yeah.
That was one of the warning signs. I was like, why would you purposely do that?
Well, I saw that and I thought, okay, you know how these people, like usually transgender people, particularly when they don't get what they want or when they've been, I don't know, like rejected or turned down, they basically play the victim. And so all I could think of is this person who is so completely emotionally fragile, was like trying to keep themselves from crying. Like, so I was like, yeah, I can see that, because like a lot of these people, when they talk about how oppressed they are and how victims they are, they're like, oh, I'm about to cry. Like that's how I perceived it. So like Marty Epstein, he basically created a caricature that was so subtle and so believable that it fooled even like the most and I shared this on several different group sites. Everyone believed it. Why wouldn't you? Because this is the insanity of the world that we live in. Like, this is the kind of thing that people get away with. And the idea of an actual classroom being used and a person doing a drag show, I'm like, yeah. I mean, the amount of things that we're doing, I'm not at all shocked that this would happen.
Yep.
This is the way that the world is going right now.
It's so crazy. And like I said a couple minutes ago, 10 years ago, we're like, well, this is obviously going to happen. They're obviously going to bring this stuff to schools. They're obviously going to try and pervert and distort and twist and groom children. I know that's a bad word on Twitter, which we're streaming on right now. Groom. Because we love to.
Oh, by the way, Twitter, we're talking about. By the way, we're talking about grooming cats. Making sure the fur is nice and smooth. Yeah, very important.
Yeah,
about the groomsmen and all that. Very groomy.
Yeah, can't talk about grooming on Twitter. Yeah, because oh my gosh, that's a slur. It's kind of meant to be, because what they're doing is absolutely horrendous. Well,
here's what I said. Like, I made a Facebook post about this. This thing, but I mean, I didn't know it was actually a thing. Like, I actually so Steven showed me a video of Marty Epstein, and I'm like, okay, yeah, he does this kind of stuff, but he plays it so subtly that you can't even recognize. He does it very well.
Like, what I had to watch the video a couple times to make sure, to be like, okay, yeah, that's something that's off. And like during the video, whenever the guest was talking, he would always look to the right, and I'm like, they're in the same studio.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did notice that upon the subsequent viewing. Now, here's the thing. Here's what I said. You have these teachers in classrooms intentionally and purposefully looking for any opportunity to bring up gender or sexuality with their children, right? And I said this, I'm like, what's next? You're going to have a meth addict teaching kids about drugs in schools? Are you going to have a gang member teaching kids about the glamour of the thug life? Or are you going to have
as long as they're an illegal immigrant? Yes.
Yeah. Are you going to have pimps coming into classrooms and teaching kids about how great it is to be sexually liberated? Like, this is basically what they're doing. Like, like you have drag queens who basically their entire focus is hypersexualized, like glamorizing the hypersexualized life. That's really what drag queens are doing. And you're bringing them in to talk to kids. And you think that is a wholesome person to talk to? Like, this is why we're against it. Because in the same way that you don't justify having a stripper come to the classroom in full costume, so you don't have a drag queen coming to a classroom and talking to children or anywhere. So, yeah. No.
Yep.
It's out limits.
Oh, yeah. It's all about limits.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. But things
Steven's at a loss for words. He's got nothing.
Well, I'm just like, how do I...
This is a rare occurrence.
Limits?
Rare occurrence?
Into nothing to hide.
No. It's the... You know what? Just like the left tries to say, hey, don't worry, nothing to see here. There's nothing shady going on. A man in a girl's bathroom, looking at little girls. There's nothing to see here.
Yeah.
The same way we're gonna talk about how there's nothing to see in the entire shenanigans happening with the FBI in our new segment called "Nothing to See Here."
Yeah. All right. So, small click from the Naked Gun, because this is an entertaining intro to the segment.
Full screen it.
Please disperse. Nothing to see here, please.
That's one of my favorite scenes ever from that movie.
It is funny. It is funny.
Or from generally. It's a GIF. If you guys ever look on your text messages, it's one of the most easily to use GIFs. It works for almost everything. It's I shared it the other day when I was somebody shared a story about a kid who got a major stroke at 12 years old. It's nothing to see here. No vaccine problems here. You're all good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, masks is not causing communication issues.
No problem. Nothing to see here.
Were totally fine.
Nothing to see here.
Yeah, it's actually I was just having a discussion today about COVID and the reaction from the churches, because there are still some people that totally have bought in to the lies.
I was reading through that thread, and I was I was actually weighing. I'm do I want to even bother with these people? Because this point, if they still believe this at this point,
are
you even worth it? Are you even worth it at this point?
The government use stats and statistics, and I'm no, they didn't.
They did not. It's
they just made it up.
They even said at one point that it's we didn't even have lockdowns. I'm what universe were you living in? That's how. Yeah,
it's how deluded and brainwashed you'd have to be.
There's a lot of people like that.
Which, there's a lot of people like that. Just the delusion and brainwashing. To look at the FBI raid of Mar-a-Lago and say, this is a totally natural and normal event.
Nothing to see here, Stephen. Nothing to see here.
So, from the Daily Mail, FBI agents were searching for classified documents about nuclear weapons. They raided Mar-a-Lago.
They should have just said, weapons of mass destruction. That should be the thing. Mm-hmm. That'd be great.
Oh, that actually reminds me of a Robot Chicken sketch. There was a Robot Chicken sketch in which it was George W. And so you had this is consultant or advisor to the president. It'd be Mr. President, we have not found weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. And he's I think I'm a Jedi. He's you have found weapons of mass destruction. He's no, sir, we have not. You have found weapons of mass destruction. Again, sir, no, we haven't.
Not happening.
Bring me a taco. Yes, sir, right away, sir.
Jedi powers. Jedi.
It made me chuckle. It was ha ha, hee hee.
So take us through like.
All right, so
Take us through
looking for
the
nuclear
supposed
weapons
reason.
when they raided
Right.
Mar-a-Lago, according to the report, as Merrick Garland says he approved search warrant on Trump's home. So Merrick Garland called for the threats and verbal attacks against FBI and DOJ officials to cease in his brief public remarks. A response to the DOJ's petition to unseal the warrants is required by Monday. Republicans have been pushing Attorney General Garland and FBI Director Wray to speak in the days following the FBI's announced search of Mar-a-Lago. Trump announced on Monday that the FBI raided his home, yada, yada, yada. And apparently it was related to the National Archives.
By the way, I heard this somewhere else. Like I think I heard on Tipcast IRL. It was great. Like the idea is that apparently every single president from like all going back has some issue with the National Archives, like declassified documents. Apparently, even Bill Clinton had like tons of things that they were in dispute over what was and wasn't okay. So the idea that this is like a search warrant worthy offense is
it's
quite
nonsense.
frankly ridiculous. It's nonsense. But go on.
Yeah. So, just covering the areas that talk about nuclear weapons, Garland said he could not reveal further details of what prompted the hunt, but sources told the Washington Post that it has to do with nuclear weapons. They did not say that whether it has to do with the nuclear weapon program of the United States or that of another nation. And
Go nuclear.
yeah, just going nuclear. Nuclear. Not nuclear.
We were just talking about George W. Bush. It's
I
nuclear.
Did I tell you that I had to correct? Okay, so those who've been watching the show for quite a while have known and recognized that Tate was my original co-host, and Tate used the nuclear. And so he's like, no, he didn't. And so later on, I like patched it together to have George Bush saying nuclear and the reporter saying nuclear. He's like, no, nuclear. And he's like, that's funny. Yep.
Well, Steven. So
I know.
in this story, like the Daily Mail, so here's one supposed rationale. Because remember, the whole problem here is if you're going to do something as unprecedented and as like completely like massive as this, you had better have a darn good reason to go in there, right? And like Ben Shapiro said this, like a whole bunch of like very prominent like speaker, like they said like you don't just go and do something this big and this it's like there's one word, optics.
Yep.
This looks bad.
No kidding.
This makes you look like a political stunt. If you're going to do this, you had better have a darn good reason. Now, there's the first one. Their first supposed reason is like, oh, well, like he's got stuff on nuclear weapons. Well, you better pony up, otherwise you're not gonna believe you. But that wasn't the only supposed reason why they went in. Got the next story?
Yep. I was just typing in a quick message, but I can type in I can go to the next one. So, from MSN.
Oh.
No?
No, this is different.
Yeah,
Sorry,
that's-
like you got to do the Gateway Pundit.
Okay. Huge development. Report alleges FBI had personal stake in Mar-a-Lago raid. Agents were after Spygate documents Trump was holding that likely implicated FBI. So reported earlier today, President Trump declassified a binder on January 19, 2021 that contained hundreds of pages about the Crossfire Hurricane scandal, which we talked about on Tuesday. Contains damaging information about the corrupt actors involved with our government. 2 different DOJ attorney generals have defied President Trump's direct lawful order to publish the binder in Federal Register. It's been 19 months as the DOJ defies the order and every Freedom of Information Act request to make it public. Can we now raid the homes of acting AG Monty Wilkinson and Merrick Garland? The Department of Justice has already made redactions to protect sources and methods and returned the binder back to the White House, but the corrupt FBI also wanted to hide names, so at the last minute they demanded the binder comply with the 1974 Privacy Act, require any agency that releases records to also hide personal or identifiable name information. The DOJ knew this act doesn't apply to the White House. It was a stall tactic. The courts decided this 22 years ago. The Privacy Act was based around Freedom of Information Act requests, and the White House is not an agency. So, prior to leaving office, Chief of Staff Mark Meadows gave the binder back to the DOJ along with his memo. He asked the DOJ to make any Privacy Act redactions out of an abundance of caution. And he asked them to expeditiously released the binder when finished. Meadows foolishly expected this would take 3 to 4 days. It's been 19 months. So
yeah. So reason number 2, they believe that like Trump may have had some kind of Spygate documents. This is like the so-called this is the so-called blackmailed documents and all that kind of stuff that the FBI didn't want him to have because they don't want to be screwed over or something like that. So first official thing, maybe he had documents on nuclear weapons. And the second thing, maybe he actually had some documents that blackmailed the FBI. Stephen, I just sent you a thing on.
I got it.
Yeah, that's the one that you missed. I was then here's the third supposed reason why they may have gone in is that according to them, there might have been an informant who tipped them off to some secret documents. This is from the Washington Examiner, so go for it.
Yeah, so I think somebody gave them information indicating these documents are there. Retired FBI special agent in charge Michael Tabman told the Daily Mail. He added that authorities lately suspected they had not been told the truth about the existence of the documents, or had reason to believe the raiding of the former president's Florida resident was the only way they could be able to obtain the records. There was inside information, call an informant if you want. I believe either someone told them something or some other information was stumbled upon, which was kind of conclusive in their minds, and they had to go now to get that or they're not getting it. The raid was reportedly related to boxes of materials Trump brought with him to Mar-a-Lago after he left office in January 2021, multiple news office outlets reported. So yeah.
Apparently, there's either nuclear documents, or maybe there's some blackmail material, or maybe there's an informant who knows some damaging stuff is in there. You have to go in there. Altogether, you basically have the DOJ, the Department of Justice, targeting a former president and what is most likely the front runner for the candidacy going forward. If you notice, the FBI did not go after Clinton, even though she was actually far more guilty because she actually actively destroyed evidence, and she wasn't a president. A president can take documents from the White House and declassify them. So and not only that, the president and his lawyers were actively cooperating with everyone who was actually trying to check these documents. They had already been doing it for a while. You only use a search warrant under the most extreme circumstances imaginable. You don't just kind of launch. You don't throw out in a search warrant and a raid like they did, unless there's a very, very serious rationale for going in. And so far, we've got nothing but a bunch of theories and a bunch of BS from pretty much everybody. It's been pretty bad what they're doing. And if you look at even the Daily Caller, the Daily Caller story, one of the big questions that a lot of people had about what who was responsible for this raid was whether or not Merrick Garland himself actually was involved in the search warrant. I know Dan Bongino was talking about this. Several people were asking it's important. Did he specifically authorize this raid? Because if he did, that is now the Republicans now have one goal. Yeah, and that's what came out. So he did. That means that when the Republicans take the House, they should be going directly at Merrick Garland, and he should be impeached immediately.
Boom.
Because he has a horrible track record, and this one completely puts any doubts about how completely incompetent and also how completely biased he is. He should be gone. And I hope that the Republicans actually follow through, because this pretty much removes all doubt. He said yes. He's the one that approved it. He should be fired. He should be first to go.
Yep.
Yeah, so this article basically confirms what was speculated on the day after. I remember the very day after, everyone was asking, do we have confirmation that he himself signed this order? Now it's obvious he should be fired. This guy is a absolute backstabbing, Benedict Arnold.
He's a hack.
He is a traitor. He's worse than a hack. He's a traitor. He is completely one-sided, like, use of justice and all that. So, yeah. So, what the FBI wants you to believe, and the news media wants you to believe, is that, oh, this is totally legitimate, and Trump isn't above the law. They want that. This is their whole shtick. Their story is, oh, by the way, this is totally normal. This is totally acceptable. And now, cue the gaslighting, which is what that story from the that other MSN story was, which is basically right now they're either mocking Trump supporters or the media is intentionally trying to basically call say oh, you guys are talking about this. How dare you? How dare you notice what we're doing and how bad this looks? So this is the story from Business Insider.
So yes, Trump critics fly $1,800 banner that said "ha ha ha" to mock pro-Trump protesters. Sorry, I can't see it right behind my camera. And Mar-a-Lago residents following FBI raid. Trump supporters have been protesting against the FBI's raid of the former president's residence. A group of Trump critics flew a banner over the protesters at Trump's Mar-a-Lago home. It floated overhead with the words "ha ha ha ha" appearing. Yeah, the left cannot meme. They cannot troll. No, this is not trolling. You want to see trolling, you go to the Women's March and you fly a banner above it saying, "What is a woman?" That was the Daily Wire trolling, and it was perfect.
it was really well done. It's clever.
Yes.
This is not clever.
This is
not
just clever.
This is just mocking.
If they were actually even trying to be clever, the banner would say, "No one's above the law," or something like that.
Yeah.
That would be them trying to be clever. It's not really clever, but it's at least trying. This is just we're just going to be we're enjoying this moment.
Yeah. But this is
stupid.
But this was planned, because you have to remember, the media, the second this thing dropped, the media already knew what their game plan was going to be. They were going to try to gaslight everyone. Anyone who spoke out and said, this is wrong, this is terrible, this should never have happened, and they're going to be like, oh, you see, dangerous rhetoric. Oh, you see, crazy conspiracy. Oh my gosh, look at these people inciting all sorts of terrible things. This is the two-sided way that they do it. When they get pissed about something that happens, oh, it's totally legitimate, totally understandable. Summer of Love, 2020. All the burning, all the looting, all the murders, all the everything, totally understandable, totally justified. But when Trump supporters get mad over a legitimate concern about government abuse of power, oh, now we're dangerous. We're the ones that are dangerous for speaking out and even saying that we're pissed about this. Oh, hold on. Look at you guys being the dangerous, rhetoric and all that kind of stuff. This is basically no different than an abusive husband. If you think about it, comes home drunk, probably crashed the car. Wife asks him, where have you been? It's oh, look at you being super judgmental. Look at you being so mean spirited. What's wrong with you? That's basically the Democrats.
Yeah.
They do wrong and they accuse you, and then the second you speak out, they accuse you of being the wrongdoer. It's what the Democrats want is nothing to see here. This is totally cool. Pretend there's nothing wrong.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you need to look at this as not don't let them bully you or shame you into believing that, oh, you're overthinking this. No, you're not overthinking this. This is a big deal. This is a huge step, a huge line that's been crossed, where the government of the United States, they may now actually go abuse their power to go after regular people without even any illusion even or pretense of what was it called, the process of law or the due process.
Due process, yeah.
Due process. That is not happening. So don't let them bully you into believing that you are wrong for noticing the evil that they're doing.
Yep.
Right, Stephen?
Yep.
Excellent commentary, man. I like it.
I know. But of course, they knew that this was going to cause some sort of reaction. You can't have the FBI be weaponized and politicized and serve one political unit over the other without having a serious reaction from the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So, armed man who tried to breach FBI Cincinnati office killed following a standoff with police, authorities say.
Mm-hmm.
So an armed man was fatally shot by law enforcement after he attempted to break into the FBI Cincinnati office and then fled the scene Thursday morning. Troopers pursued his fleeing car at an interstate. The suspect fired shot before pulling off, abandoning his car on a rural road and engaging in an hours-long standoff, according to Ohio Highway Patrol. Law enforcement's officers shot and killed the suspect at about 3:45 p.m. He succumbed to his injuries at the scene, and everything remains under investigation at this time. They've not publicly identified the suspect, but the Associated Press reported that an official speaking on condition of anonymity discussed the ongoing incident, identified him as a 42-year-old. So, believed to be in Washington days leading up to the January 6th. And Schiffer was not charged with any crimes in connection with the January 6th riots, not attack, riots.
Clearly, he's like tied to January 6th, because that's the narrative they want you to believe.
And of course, this person did post on True Social. But this was having some sort of retaliation, have some sort of reaction against the FBI. Because the FBI, after the raid on Mar-a-Lago, we both agreed, the FBI needs to be taken down to the groundwork and demolished.
I think you basically need to start over.
Yeah.
You need to fire every single person in that entire organization. You need to fire every single person, and you need to start over from scratch.
Yep.
If any person in that organization wants to work again for the FBI, they need to go once more through a full screening, and they have to have a completely revamped list of rules of what is and is not acceptable for the FBI. They basically need to start over, burn it down, start over.
Yeah.
You can't trust anybody in that organization anymore.
No, we pointed out issues with the FBI on Tuesday with things that they have not investigated, that they have not raided and arrested, and all these things. Now, these individuals, which either should or should not be in jail because of their actions, but because the FBI has become politicized, they've only taken serious action against those on the political right. And if you're doing that, then this is a banana republic, and you are essentially the secret police out to get the enemies of the state.
Oh, yeah.
And we saw this coming. The same thing happened here in Canada with the RCMP to those in the trucker convoy. The same thing happened with the KGB. Same things happened with the secret police and the Gestapo.
Yeah,
it's happened over and over and over in history. Yeah. And this is just the most recent event. And the American people, thankfully, are reacting to it. They're saying, this is absolutely nonsense. This is unprecedented. This is disgusting. I am going to stop supporting the Democrats. I'm going to stop supporting those who continue to push for renewed support of the FBI after this nonsense.
Yeah,
and
you had that video from Trump?
Trump posted. Yeah, he posted a video in reaction, and I haven't actually watched it. So
I just want to make sure people understand. Trump hasn't announced yet that if he's running or not. Partially because of the the November elections, right? Because he doesn't want to interfere.
He doesn't want to interfere. Yeah.
This whole thing, and people have been saying, this whole thing is galvanized support by Republicans, Libertarians, people that weren't even were on the fence are now so behind and so outraged by this that they are actually now galvanized. And so into that whole mix comes Trump, who has this incredible ability that even when they think they have him, he somehow always lands on his feet. Like he always does. And this is how he responded. And this is one of the reasons I love this man.
Yeah, we're going to play a small clip from it.
Yeah.
We are a nation in decline. We are a failing nation.
Full screen, full screen. Oh, he's got the thunder. Bring the thunder.
We are a nation that has the highest inflation in over 40 years. Where the stock market just finished the worst first half of a year in more than 5 decades. We are a nation that has the highest energy cost in its history.
Amen.
We are no longer energy independent or energy dominant, which we were just 2 short years ago. We are a nation that is begging Venezuela and Saudi Arabia for oil. We are a nation that surrendered in Afghanistan, leaving behind dead soldiers, American citizens, and $85 billion worth of the finest military equipment in the world.
Yes.
We are a nation that allowed Russia to devastate a country, Ukraine, killing hundreds of thousands of people, and it will only get worse. We're a nation that has weaponized its law enforcement against the opposing political party like never before. We've never seen anything like this.
I mean, this sounds like a campaign ad, doesn't it?
Free and fair press.
Everything about it.
Fake news is about all you get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can continue to watching.
Well,
watch this.
hold on. Can you
Yep.
can you fast forward to the very end of that video? I just want to show you what like the final tagline.
We will not break.
Very, very end. Very,
We will
very end.
not yield.
Like,
There's like a title card that he
We
leaves
will
it
never
on.
give in. We will never. And it is time to start.
Like the last 5 seconds.
greatness
there's
of
like
our country.
5 seconds left, give or take.
Yeah. Here. Look what it says.
Best is yet to come.
That's the one. That is what a lot of people basically they believe that is basically like almost like a subtle way of saying that I'm running.
Yeah.
So
and
it's amazing.
fairly certain that he was going to be running for a while.
Yes, but this is almost
Absolutely
like
not.
an indirect. This is an indirect way of saying like I'm putting my hat in the ring and all that. And this was released almost like the day after.
Yeah.
So this was prepared long before. He just kind of released it at the right time. So ultimately, some theories are that like maybe the FBI thought like, oh, we're going to get away with it, no one's going to care. Oh, well, that didn't come to pass. Another theory is that maybe they wanted to like set up Trump and like make him the de facto candidate like over DeSantis because they feel that they can beat him. That's the 4D chess kind of approach. But another one is they thought like maybe we can like pin him on something and then he won't be able to run. But I think this backfired horribly. And I think that this not only guaranteed that the Republicans are going to win big in the fall, but also that that Trump is likely going to have pretty much all the ammunition he needs to pretty much devastate anybody in the 2024 election.
Yep.
So it's going to get big.
All right, so now we have to move on from the Mar-a-Lago raid to the news you may have missed. So let's go over that to do that.
Bring the heat.
Well, it's not really a heat; it's just really information. That is what we are
That's-
armed with here.
It's a quote from the show Community.
Okay.
Good old
He's a
Chang.
little obsessed with the community.
I
So-
do love my community.
It's good. It's good. With prices up and output down, Biden's boast of 0% inflation is beyond parody.
Uh-huh.
Joe Biden
What's this
claims
from?
this is from the New York Post.
Ah,
Joe
very good.
Biden claims the latest inflation figures are good news. They're not. Of course, and another economic report makes them even grimmer. Prices are still 8.5% higher than last year, the sharpest uptick in 40 years, and it would be up even more if not for a small drop in energy costs. Plus, productivity fell again during the second quarter, making the 2.5% year-over-year decline the worst on record. Yet on Wednesday, Biden boasted of 0% inflation in July, meaning it hasn't gotten any more outrageous than in June, though gas dipped 7.7%. Food costs rose yet again, continuing a month-long trend that brought the 12-month climb to a painful 10.9%, the steepest since the Jimmy Carter stagflation days of 1979. And the slip-up in gas prices comes from a drivers cutting back on trips, not an increasing in supply.
So you can't even take credit for that.
Yeah, demand fell to 8.5 million barrels a day, matching the level in 2020 when the pandemic kept million indoors. Cutting back on food, of course, is harder. While gas prices today, $4.15 a gallon per the Energy Information Agency, may be better than the $5.11 rate in June, it merely means that Americans are paying only 69% more than when Biden took over, rather than 108% more. Even more troubling is the productivity plunge, down 4.6% last quarter after a whopping 7.4% drop in the year's first 3 months that drove the year's biggest year-to-year drop in hourly output since the Labor Department began keeping records. Things are bad.
I think the problem here is that, and what people are pointing out is that Joe Biden's administration is a bunch of pathological liars, and this is another example
Pathological
of
liars and spend-happy morons.
yeah. because like the way that they got that 0% inflation is they basically is that the number from last month from June to July did not increase, but it also didn't decrease. So that's how they got that. But inflation is not calculated on a month-to-month basis; it's calculated by yearly basis. That's what economists do, and so like they're basically like they're lying through statistics.
Yep.
Bunch of liars. You can't trust them. Mm-hmm. Speaking of liars that you can't trust at all, we have the story from True North. The RCMP is tapping cell phones, but wants us to trust them. Trust those institutions that are a bunch of hacks. So the RCMP has been using Canadian-made technology to spy on people's cell phones for 20 years, even using spyware, allowing officers to surreptitiously turn on phone cameras and microphones. By the way, I have friends who actually like intentionally cover their little cameras on their phones with little stickers because they know that this is a possibility. And you should really be worried about this. The police agency says, of course, it only does this in limited circumstances with judicial approval. So Canadians don't need to worry. Trust us. We're wonderful. We always follow the law, says a bunch of hacks. True North Anthlon says the RCMP has not earned the benefit of the doubt. Thank you. Amen. Also, UCP leadership candidate Brian Jean, he wants autonomy for Albertans, and other people like said that they want to kind of hold them accountable. So basically, I saw several shows talking about this and saying like spyware is not a big deal. I was like, no, spyware is a very big deal, especially like spyware is used by bad actors, by like hackers and people who want to steal your data, who don't care about how the possible abuses that can be done by it. When you have a government agency like the RCMP using spyware on its own citizens, you have some serious problems. And so you need to be more, not less, transparent, and the RCMP is anything but transparent.
Yeah.
So,
speaking of organizations that are not transparent, woke DA, the DeSantis, or at least he was not transparent until DeSantis fired him. Woke DA that DeSantis suspended quoted Bible to justify arrest of Christian pastor.
What a Bible? Oh my gosh.
Yep. Well, so did the police when they arrested our pastor.
Uh-huh.
So in March 2020, Hillsborough State Attorney Andrew Warren justified the arrest of Pastor Rodney Howard Brown of the River Church at Tampa Bay for violating the guidelines prohibiting large gatherings. To justify the arrest, Warren declared, putting your parishioners at risk in time of an emergency like this is not only reckless, but it's illegal. Warren declared, I'd like to note that it's unfortunate the pastor here is hiding behind the First Amendment. It's absolutely clear that emergency orders like this are constitutional and valid. Warren then cited the Bible and reminded the good pastor of Mark 12:31, which says there's no more important commandment than to love thy neighbor as thyself. Loving thy neighbors is to protect them, not jeopardizing their health by exposing them to this deadly virus.
I remember hearing that, and it was such a... there's so much arrogance there.
Oh, yeah.
From people who don't even know the Bible at all.
Oh, not even close. Like, yeah, absolutely clueless.
Yeah. Imagine, somebody quoting the Quran and being like, well, you guys are idiots. Here's one Quran verse that pretty much disputes people who actually study the Quran for a living. You're so silly.
You're so silly.
You're so silly. All right, this is from Blaze Media. Boston Children's Hospital scrubs videos touting gender-affirming hysterectomies for young girls after online criticism. They got busted. That's good. Let's hope it continues. Boston Children's Hospital touted gender-affirming hysterectomies for young girls in a video unearthed by the popular Lips of TikTok account. Oh, Lips of TikTok is a godsend. They are exposing so much evil right now.
Oh,
it is absolutely
so just quickly, thank you, Conquerworm, for commenting. So in China, and we talked about this before, in China the government closes churches and they still meet despite fear of jail or death. They also did this in Afghanistan after the Biden government left. Okay. And in North America, of course, our churches are afraid of the flu.
No, they're afraid of the government.
Yes.
Really. I mean, they say that they're afraid of the flu. No, they're afraid of the government. And they try to hide behind Bible passages to pretend that they're being faithful, but really they're just fear. They're just afraid, and they're not willing to admit it.
Well, yeah, they're not so much afraid of the government; they're afraid of the backlash.
Mm-hmm.
Because way too many churches, especially here in Canada, care more about public approval than they do about actually following scripture, which is why so many churches are unwilling to publicly call out abortion, publicly call out the LGBTQ, and have a say in a lot of these matters, and to frankly actually get involved in politics because they are afraid that modern society will reject them.
Mm-hmm.
So, just a quick little aside.
So, quick little, follow up on the story from
too
Boston.
much social acceptance instead of biblical understanding. Thank you.
Yes.
Well done.
So the video from Boston. The video featured Dr. Francis Grimstad of Boston Children's Division of Gynecology explaining the different types of hysterectomies a girl can undergo. Grimstad identified herself as an advocate of trans reproductive health, another euphemism, in her Twitter biography, which also includes her preferred pronouns as she and her and all that kind of stuff. So the video was taken down because of a lot of backlash from the right, which is now becoming, thankfully, a very serious obstacle to a lot of these, child abusive, people and all these, organizations. The full video was private, and the hospital basically, said they try to take credit for being among the first to defend transgender rights, but obviously after the backlash, they kind of backed down. But here's an example of one big problem that we have in our society, which is people who are doctors who made an oath that they will do no harm, doing harm. This is a problem when you have doctors intentionally doing hysterectomies, removing the breasts of healthy breasts of healthy girls, and causing them God knows how many terrible consequences in the future. Because, by the way, removing someone's breasts is not a consequence-free thing. It has lifelong implications and serious health impacts that they're never willing to talk about. It's short-term thinking at the worst, and obviously taking advantage of children who are easily manipulated, easily vulnerable, and who basically are desperate.
And that leads right into this next story, where doctors accuse the American Academy of Pediatrics of suppressing debate over transgender treatments. This is from Tim Cass. The organization recently prevented members from voting on a resolution requiring in-depth review of puberty blockers and hormone therapy. So they're being denounced, who say the organization is pushing puberty blockers on transgender identifying minors despite concern expressed by its members. Whistleblowers have alleged the organization is intentionally altering its rules to prevent members from mandating a thorough review. So new documents acquired by the Daily Mail, including a series of comments from the AAP's members-only website complaining about the organization's policies regarding this treatment. And specifically, doctors involved with the AIP complained because the organization blocked Resolution 27, which would have required the organization to undertake a rigorous schematic review of available evidence regarding the safety, efficacy, and risks of childhood social transition, puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and surgery. So, all of that.
Yeah. Well, if you remember correctly, what's her name? Abigail Schreier, who's a big name in the transgender debate. She wrote a book called Irreversible Damage.
Irreversible Damage.
I would definitely
recommend craze that's seducing our daughters.
Yes, and that book, the left, the lunatic left, they don't want to have a debate about the actual evidence and claims and everything else that's brought up in the book. They just want to shut it up. They want to ban it. That's all they do. It's all banned. This is why we cannot have reasonable debate. And debate is meant to help us to find solutions that work. When you cancel debate, you have damage, and unfortunately, the people that are going to pay for this kind of top-down authoritarian, complete crackdown on any debate are the kids that are being thrown into this thing, and it's pretty horrifying. But let's go to the final story. This is from the Counter Signal. The nurse shortages leading to emergency department shutdowns. Again, something that we've seen before, but complicated, but still one of the consequences of the terrible policy we've had for the last couple of years. All right, so this is what they say. Over the weekend, Montfort Hospital in Ottawa, along with Carleton Place and District Memorial Hospital, just outside the city, was forced to shut down their emergency department for an entire 12 hours due to what Montfort called an unprecedented shortage of nurses. The decision to close the emergency, even for a few hours, is not easy to make, but we had to do it to ensure our team is able to offer excellent, safe, and compassionate care when the emergency reopens. At Carlton Place, this memorial was even worse. They both shut their emergency departments down for 24 hours. That means if you get into a car accident,
Whoa.
you're basically screwed.
If
You're basically like like on the verge of death and all that. No, you're screwed. Something most hospitals don't even do on Christmas. It's the same story for across the country, for Saskatchewan, even the South Calgary Health Centre is reducing the department. So here's what the counter signal says, is the possible causes. Close small businesses, reduce restaurant capacity, fire unvaccinated people, funerals and weddings, mass children, close schools and travel. And all that is to save the healthcare system. And yet the healthcare system is dying.
Yep.
Now, it's obviously very complex, but here, what the counter signal is pointing out is the reality on the ground. The reality on the ground, we have a mess in our healthcare system. We were promised that if only we complied, if only we did everything they told us, we'd save the healthcare system. And here we are, the healthcare system is dying. And more money is not going to solve this problem. It is fundamentally interconnected. Our Canadian healthcare system is literally on life support.
Yep.
And that is something you should be very aware of because it's only going to get worse. Those are the stories you may have missed this week.
The news you may have missed this week.
Hmm.
So, final story we're going to go into is truly horrifying. Truly horrifying for the douche of the week.
They keep getting worse, don't they? They keep getting more douchey.
Yikes. This is the line. Don't cross it. Oh, look, you crossed it. All right, let's jump in. Okay, so from the Post-Millennial. Counselor for sex offenders defends pedophiles as marginalized minority. According to her, these minor attracted people are the most vilified population of folks who suffer from disparaging assumptions of the wider population. So,
but by the way, can I just say something really quick before you go on? I wanted to say this. Normally, the left has always been very. The one good thing that they've always been good at is they're renaming things to make them more acceptable. It used to be homosexual, now it's gay, because they want to portray them as happy. It used to be like gay sex was kind of icky and gross. Then they came up with the rainbow flag to make it nice and sounding and all that kind of stuff. And even transgenders, transgender, but like drag queens, or look, they're flowery and fun and all that kind of stuff. That can't be bad. But the map idea, I think they really dropped the ball. They dropped the ball on this one. They really did. Because I don't see anything redeemable about that name.
No.
I don't think so. Anyways, go on.
Okay, so on July 24th, licensed sex therapist Miranda Galbraith posted a video titled "Let's Talk About Minor Attracted Persons." In the video, Galbraith refers to pedophiles as minor attracted people, stating that the term pedophile is a judgmental, hurtful insult. No freaking kidding. According to her, these minor attracted people. Yes.
By the way, do you know what the actual how you get the term pedophile? What the etymology of that term is? It's descriptive.
Pedo
is like short for child,
and file
is something that you love.
That you like.
That's yes. That's why if you get the word hydrophilic it's any substance
water bonding substance
that really likes water and mixes well with water.
Yeah.
Right. Hydrophobic is any substance that
repels water.
Repels and avoids water and doesn't mix well with water. This is where you get the term pedophile. It's not a derogatory term; it's descriptive. Science
with the Shrewd podcast.
Well, etymology with the Shrewd podcast.
Anyways, go on. According to her, these minor attracted people are the most vilified population of folks who are suffering from disparaging assumptions of the wider population.
Yeah,
in the video, she compared attraction to children to other sexualities, saying that minor attracted persons simply means the person has an enduring sexual or romantic attraction to minors. They have not chosen this attraction. You don't get to choose to be heterosexual or gay. You don't get to choose to be a minor attracted person. The clip from the video was shared by Twitter by Libs of TikTok garnered a massive response with thousands of comments. Let's just watch it.
No, hold on. Before you go in there, can I just mention one little thing? I know I get go up a little bit. They're trying to make the connection between like minor, like they're like, oh, they're just like gay and heterosexual people and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, no, they're not, because the thing that they desire is bad and can never be acceptable. Like with gay people, at least they're going after someone else who's an adult who can consent. These are like people, in order to fulfill their desires, need to go after children who cannot consent, and it's rife for abuse. This is like saying that, oh, cannibals are perfectly fine. Like, no, they're not, because they desire eating people. That is not a good thing. Do not make that comparison. Continue.
Continue, indeed. Okay, now let's watch the video. It's
Now, by the way, I haven't seen this video,
Miranda.
so
I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a licensed professional counselor and sex therapist in Erie, Pennsylvania. And today I want to talk about minor attracted persons. And I want to talk about minor attracted persons because they are probably the most vilified population of folks in our culture. And
they should be.
Most folks are making incorrect assumptions about them without actually knowing much about them. And those assumptions create harm for an already marginalized population.
It's poor victims.
You may have noticed that I'm using the term minor attracted persons, sometimes abbreviated to MAPS, instead of the more commonly used term pedophile. And I'm doing this because the term pedophile has moved from being a diagnostic label to being a judgmental, hurtful insult that we hurl at people in order to harm them or slander them.
yes.
I also prefer person first language that recognizes that any label we might apply to a person is only part of who they are and doesn't represent everything that they are.
Oh, so like bigot and homophobe?
First, with many different facets or parts of ourselves. And this includes folks who are attracted to minors. So to start with, let's talk about what a minor attracted person is or who they are. This term simply means that the person has an enduring sexual or romantic attraction to minors. They've not chosen this attraction, just as the rest of us have not chosen whatever our attraction is. You don't get to choose to be heterosexual or to be gay or whatever you are. And you don't get to choose to be a minor attracted person. Some minor attracted persons are attracted to a specific age range of minors, while some are not. And some minor attracted persons are exclusively attracted to minors and are not attracted to adults at all. Some minor attracted persons are also attracted to adults.
So, you go, Stephen. I got lots to say about this, but I'll let you go first.
Well, I remember listening to this when it was playing on Michael Knowles today. I was just like, this person is horrifying. Pedophiles are deranged perverts. And anyone who chooses to defend them and their actions, especially against the most innocent in our society, which is, of course, children, is looping themselves in. And frankly, they should all be rounded up and put in jail. Because pedophiles are an inherent danger to our children. Because they wish to take advantage, they wish to exploit, and they wish to abuse and harm them. That is what being a pedophile is. I don't care what term you're using to describe it, whether it's a pedophile or a minor attracted person. You are, and what you do implicitly causes harm.
There's no way to fulfill that desire that is not harmful. There just isn't. You cannot fulfill that desire in a way that does not harm another person, particularly a child. Children are not in any way desexualized. If you're like, let's face it, pedophiles, they range from like the ones that are extreme, who just want to have sex with prepubescent children, and those are incredibly harmful. And then because there's nothing sexualized. I mean, like let's face it, like Muhammad is criticized like crazy by a lot of people because he had a a child sex bride, 9 years old. Aisha, I think her name was, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was, like, and they try to say like, oh, that's totally normal. To have like a 9-year-old, like, bride for like, sex. I'm like, no, it's not. The reason why, and by the way, like, I don't know if you know the history. The reason why we have laws of, like, like we call it age of consent laws is because of the incredible abuses that were done to children in the past. Because children are by far the most vulnerable. They're the ones that that are easily exploited and do not have the power to defend themselves. There's a reason why if any man or woman has sex with someone who's under the age of consent, you cannot argue that, oh, they were totally okay with it. Like, no, that child does not have the capacity to consent, is what we say. And that's right, because that's meant to be a protection. Now, one thing that person said is, oh, these people didn't choose their attraction. Okay, you know what? I will grant her that, in the sense that there are a lot of desires that should never be fulfilled and should be fought against. There are people who are born with a desire to start fires. They're what do they call pyromaniacs or whatever?
Some
Pyromaniacs.
just want to watch the world burn.
They have a desire to burn things, things. That desire, just because it's naturally occurring to them, does not mean they should fulfill it. There are people who have a desire to eat human flesh. That was Jeffrey Dahmer's problem. Jeffrey Dahmer had a terrible, horrible fascination with all sorts of weird sexual fantasies and all sorts of ways with the human body. He fulfilled that desire, and it was horrifying. What they're trying to do is they're using the same playbook that they used for the gay community and for the transgender community. People knew this was it was obvious for people that this are not proper desires. They are disordered desires, and they needed to be corrected. This is what, for most of human history, people understood. This is not something that you should pursue, not a desire you should pursue. But then they used the strategy of trying to turn them into victims. Oh, they're victims. Oh, they're being attacked and targeted. That is the strategy that got them. That was the winning strategy that they used in the 90s and then 2000s and onwards. Try to convince society that, being gay is completely and totally acceptable by turning them into victims. And it still works today. Oh, you disagree with a gay person? You're the mean one. You're the bully. They're the victim. It's always the victim. They're trying to use the same exact strategy for pedophiles. And you'll notice that that woman wants you to feel sorry for them. She wants you to feel bad for them. She wants you to feel all these terrible things from them. But you have to remember, all of these people, what they're doing is they're trying to tell these people, oh, you're a victim. And you have the right to feel betrayed and all this kind of stuff. And people should make you feel good. But as you saw, the original story at the very beginning, there was that transgender person in the bathroom. What happened? They felt entitled. They felt completely and totally, I'll never be caught. I'll never be held accountable. No one's ever going to call me to account. And the only time they ever are is when they actually cause harm and they actually abuse or harm a child, and then suddenly they're charged, they're thrown in prison, and they just try to whitewash it and pretend it didn't happen, and then just kind of go back to the the usual thing.
Yeah.
Mark my words. If and let's not kid ourselves. They want to make this a thing. They are working extremely hard. When I say they, the left, the radical lunatic left. They are very seriously pursuing. They want to make it okay to be a pedophile or a nap, as they like to say it. Why? Because then they can justify removing age of consent laws. Because then you remove those age of consent laws, it's a free-for-all. And it's going to be, speaking of lines, you remove those age of consent laws, it's going to be a free-for-all. Pornography is going to explode for child porn. You're going to have an explosion of child abuse. And you're going to have an explosion of all sorts of horrible consequences that you will not believe. And it's all led by these people who want to harm children.
Yep.
Never, ever an acceptable way of fulfilling this desire. There just is not. And unfortunately, there are far too many people in the LGBT community, particularly the hardcore activists, who are not only okay with having sexual encounters with children, but consider it to be like, almost like a given. That should be normalized and that should be okay. I'll give you a great example of that. Harvey Milk.
Yeah.
Is one of the heroes. They actually had like a monument, I think, put up for him in I think it was San Francisco. Mm-hmm. But if anybody actually looks into Harvey Milk, actually look at the history, he had several like illicit relationships with children, with underage minors. Yeah. And everyone looks the other way. But unfortunately, this is not just Harvey Milk. There is a laundry list. It's like the best kept secret in the gay community is how much they go after children.
Yep.
Make no mistake, this is all predatory.
Them.
Because why would you want to groom them? Why would you want to groom them, Stephen?
So that you can more easily commit assault.
Have sex with them.
Yes. So, yeah, it's all predatory. It's always been predatory. We've been covering these stories for months now, probably over a year, about the desire and the LGBTQ movement being predators to children. And it's not stopping. It's only getting worse. So, if you see something, say something. But sometimes you got to act in the moment.
By the way, this woman works with incarcerated sex offenders.
Yep.
You know what that means? These are people who are actually in prison for actually doing harmful things to children.
Yeah.
Well, these aren't innocent pedophiles who are struggling with like these illicit
urges
desires.
And they didn't act. These are people that
they're trying to change. These are people who actually followed through and are now in prison for what they did. Remember that woman that we covered a couple weeks ago? She was in prison for having sex with minors.
Yep.
And she was actually she was sending out letters and be like, "Hey, you want to be my pen pal?"
Oh yeah.
Remember that girl?
Yeah.
Pedophile's got a pedophile, I guess.
Pedophile's got a pedophile. All right. So that's going to be the end of today's show. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. For those who are part of the live stream and commenting back and forth, thank you very much. We always appreciate a good active chat. And today was...
Where was the chat happening?
Twitch.
Nice.
So it was mostly not questions. It was just commentary. It was back and forth. So, but it was still good commentary. Thoroughly enjoyed. So thank you for participating.
Yeah.
If you're following,
one thing I wonder, Stephen. Yep. I wonder how long it'll be until Twitch is forced to change their name. Right? I mean, I actually thought about that the other day. I'm like, Beyonce was forced to change
the lyrics of one of her songs because it was
spaz. Because it says spaz, and I was like, seriously? That was the reason. I'm like, how long until Twitch is going to have to change their name? So, I mean,
indeed,
no disrespect to Twitch, but watch out. They will come for you at some point.
They're coming for you.
Come for you.
Again, if you're following us on our recorded platforms such as YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, and YouTube, then comment, subscribe, the whole dealio. If you're following us on
if you like the show, give us a like so we know that you actually enjoyed it. If you think that we're wrong or we're right or something like that, feel free to comment.
Say so. And
if you think it's worthwhile, share it with your friends so other people get to see the stuff.
And if you really, really disagree with us, then tell us, and we'll invite you on the show. We'll dedicate an entire episode to you because we would love to have an opposing point of view. Because every time we invite somebody, they're just like silence.
No. Crickets.
Every single time they're like, "Oh, I'll totally debate you," and then it's like, "Okay, all right, here's the invite. Come on, let's do it."
And
they're like,
"Let's do it. Bring it on."
Silence. One person was like, "Why would I ever debate misogynistic racists?" And I'm like, "Well, would you like to prove those claims on air? Let's do it." And they're like, "No," and I'm like, "Then we're not." So bye.
To be fair, I would definitely go on a leftist show.
Oh yeah. Easy.
And be like, what we got?
Let's go.
Come on.
Come on.
Bring it.
Bring it. But they won't do that. The only time we've ever had something even across the aisle was back in 2020, where I joined the Cassie's World podcast that's just talking about pro-life, pro-choice.
Yeah.
And I mopped the floor with her.
Mm-hmm.
And I convinced her to become pro-life. I was like, yeah.
well, the funny thing is, I will say this. I watched or I listened to Timcast IRL today. I think it was the last night's show, but it was Naomi Wolf. And Naomi Wolf, for those of you who don't know, she's a very like prominent leftist. Like, she's always been a prominent leftist, prominent feminist, and all that kind of stuff. But she kind of came around, and she's now kind of like finding herself more in common with people on the right, because like that's now a conglomeration of everyone from like classical liberals to like libertarians to like everyone else. And she basically came out of the echo chamber.
Denny?
Yeah.
That's not the same person.
Naomi Wolf?
Yeah.
Naomi Wolf, that she was on the
Naomi Wolf is not that.
Not what?
Well, okay.
That's what she talked about on the show.
Okay, I'm thinking of who am I thinking of?
You're thinking someone else.
She had she had like a show.
Uh-huh.
And she was.
Are you thinking about that girl who had that show on Netflix and she's like shouting her fortune?
Yes.
That's someone else.
But I believe she also had the name Wolf.
Yeah, she did. That's not Naomi Wolf. Though.
Okay. All right.
No.
Because there was somebody who did that.
No. By the way, I sincerely recommend, if you haven't seen it, go see the Timcast IRL conversation with Naomi Wolf. It was great. She basically like is a great example of what happens when you're in the leftist cult. She had no idea that the things that she was being told were wrong. She believed fully that Trump was a Russian agent. She said it on the show. She was like, yeah, I actually believe that. And then she married a libertarian, and that's when she was exposed to all the stuff. And she was like, wow, was I ever wrong? Like, she literally was like, wow, I was like, she was red pilled. Basically, the best way to put it. But it shows, she understood very well that on the left, you are absolutely forbidden from talking to anybody on the other side. That's why it's like a
Yep.
And this is why people don't talk to you if you're a conservative.
Oh, yeah.
They're basically trained to completely avoid you. It is a cult.
Well, and typically if they do invite conservatives on, usually it's one conservative for like 4 leftists. And then if the conservative says something like The View, or when Ben Shapiro, of course, joined that famous discussion about
the panel,
Bruce Jenner.
But even he was also on a black.
That one too, panel. About black schools.
Remember?
Yeah,
black CRT.
That was
panel,
one of my favorite line that he did.
And
he's like, "You tell me," and they're all like,
yeah.
He's like, "He's not wrong, but
he's not got nothing to say about this." Dang it!
Yeah, it was hilarious.
Right.
But anyways, so following us on our text platforms, give us a review, give us a like. Come on, counter that stupid hate. Because the leftists hate us.
Yeah.
The ones that know about us hate us.
Well, it's funny because like that's usually a good indication that I'm doing something right. When the leftists hate us, I'm like, yeah, we got this. Yeah, we're doing this well. Because
we're doing it
like I've told our buddy Graham. I again love you, Graham. He's a great guy. But if you think that being a good Christian means that you're going to be liked by everyone, nobody. That is not an indication that you're on the right path. You are actually not. You should be hated by the right people.
By the right people.
That's right.
And we're hated by the right people.
Yes, we are.
Get a lot of hate. Anyways, doesn't matter. Danny, sign us out.
Hey, we are the Shrewd Dudes, and we love educating you, showing you the right way, showing you the facts. We always like to say to you, why be rude? You can be shrewd. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Love you. And Steven, finish it up.
We'll see you on Tuesday Newsday. Have a great weekend and a great night. And until then, as always, God bless.
Good night, everybody.